Alright, Gonzalez, let's go over our Memorial Day checklist. Are the anti-disaster protocols in place? The volcanoes have been appeased, the tsunami barriers are operational, and we have a storm shelter in case of typhoons. All the new employees have been trained? All trained and ready to roll for the summer rush. Is Zach still running his trade shop in disguise, pretending not to be an undercover boss? Yes, and everyone's been informed to pretend that they don't notice. And speaking of which, what about the Zach dollars? Legal has made sure that each and every one has been printed with a disclaimer that it's a gift voucher and not actual legal tender. As such, we are allowed to operate the casino legally under our jurisdiction. Speaking of which jurisdiction would that be? Due to legal loopholes and how everything works around here, we are now under Mushroom Kingdom law. I got a feeling Zach gave you the island only so he can be under Peach's dominion, or more likely her dress. Yeah, he'd have to get past Mario first. I'm sure he's willing to try. So, we're all prepared then, good. Oh, and we got some extra time. I got time to review another Charlie Brown special. Oh, would you look at the time? Not Zach wanted to see me about some fancy new sci-fi guns he wanted to unload on me. Gotta go! Alright, fine, I'll do it myself. I don't need you. I got one of these. What do you think of that? I don't care. Oh well. On with the video. Hey everyone, it's the Koopa Man. Happy Memorial Day weekend. You know what that means.
Today's the first day of summer! Happy first day of summer, Squidward! Care to join me for solstice caroling? Walking in the grass, it's so fine, don't need shoes in the summertime!
That's right, Memorial Day weekend, the unofficial start of summer where all the pools, beaches, and water parks are all open for business, as well as when Zack Island gets the most attendance from the hottest women in fighting games. But we aren't here to talk about that. Yet. You may also know that Memorial Day has a much deeper meaning other than being the first day of summer. It's a day where we honor our brave and fallen heroes who risked so much to keep us safe and free. So to honor their memory, we're going to talk about Peanuts again. And before you click off, I am for real. There is a Peanuts Memorial Day special. This is a thing that exists, and we're gonna talk about it. Now, a bit of backstory. As you can tell by this video's length, this special isn't really all that meaty and really only has 2 major scenes. As such, Schultz himself had trouble writing it. However, after he had an open heart surgery, he managed to finish the script while in recovery, and we've got what's known today as What Have We Learned, Charlie Brown? So the special opens up with a little montage of Charlie Brown's childhood innocence. Yeah, it's trying to make one of those points. When he decides to go through an album of his trip to France. And, well, alright, continuity. So, I intend to cover the movies themselves at some point, but to keep things brief, this is a sequel to the movie Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown, and Don't Come Back, where as part of an exchange program, Charlie Brown, Linus, Marcy, and Peppermint Patty, and Snoopy all go to France, and stay with a man who Charlie Brown's grandfather, Silas Brown, saved during World War II. While Charlie Brown is going through his pictures, he's approached by his sister Sally, who asks him about his trip home. From there, the rest of the special is mostly told in flashback. After the exchange program was over and it was time to go home, the gang wished their new friends from the chateau a farewell as they made their way to the train station so they could get to London for their flight home. Unfortunately, they let Snoopy drive, and what he was driving was basically the French equivalent of the Yugo, the Citroën 2CV, a notorious lemon, and they get in a 10-car pileup almost immediately. Once they get to town, their car completely breaks down. And by breakdown, I mean it's reduced to a pile of scrapyard rubble right on the street. Like I said, they were driving a lemon. The gang decide to have lunch at a nearby cafe while Snoopy tries to fix the car, and to his credit, he did better than any beagle has any right to. Plus, I think it's more drivable now than it was originally. So they decide to trade in their pile of scrap for something a bit safer. The rental place was run by an old lady who, once learning that Snoopy was a World War I flying ace, is delighted to help them. Is she senile? Or is Snoopy's fantasies a bit more than meets the eye? That or she thought he was an adorable cute little dog in a uniform and has a weakness for cute little dogs. So after critically injuring Charlie Brown for the crime of being Charlie Brown, they're back on their way, before nearly mowing down a cyclist. They end up lost but decide to head north as logically they'd eventually hit the coastline and can just follow it to their destination. They make their way to the northern coastline by dark and decide to camp out overnight, while Linus thinks there's some awfully familiar familiar about this campsite. Just before dawn, he wakes up early and decides to take a walk and look around, and has flashbacks to what he's only seen before in textbooks. Turns out they were camping at Omaha Beach, the site of the D-Day landings. He's overcome with visions of Czech hedgehogs, battlements, bombers, and landers, imagining what it would have been like for the men storming the beaches. This is accompanied by rotoscoping of actual photos taken of the battle, which formed a sort of serene yet disturbing dissonance to the usual Charlie Brown art style, and is very much intended to do so. Honestly, all that's missing is a Sabaton soundtrack.
Through the gates of hell, as we make our way to heaven, through the Nazi lines. Viva Victoria!
Afterwards, Linus describes details of the battle to the others. On the hill, Marcy spots a plaque and reads it out, having learned perfect French during this trip. They then stop at the American cemetery, where the unknown soldiers were laid to rest. Linus recalls the words of General Dwight Eisenhower speaking in the aftermath of D-Day, as an archival recording of the man himself is overlaid over Linus speaking.
On this day,
many hundreds of men came here, British and our other allies, American, to storm these beaches for one purpose only, not to gain anything for ourselves, not to fulfill any ambitions that America had for conquest, but just to preserve freedom, systems of self-government in the world. Many thousands of men have died for ideals such as these. And here again, in the 20th century, for the second time, Americans, along with the rest of the free world, but Americans had to come across the ocean to defend those same values. But these young boys, so many of them, over whose graves we have been treading, looking at, wondering and contemplating about their sacrifices, they were cut off in their prime. But they never knew the great experiences of going through life like my son can enjoy. I devoutly hope that we will never again have to see such scenes as these. I think and hope, pray, that the humanity will learn more than we had learned up to that time. We must find some way to work to peace and to really to gain an eternal peace for this world.
It begins to rain as Charlie Brown is reminded he's put on this earth to suffer, and they drive off. They make it to town and have lunch as Linus continues to recount the events of D-Day with rotoscope overlaying the montage continuing. After the rain lets up, they go over to a spot where the British landed during D-Day before returning to their car to make their way to the ferry. Oh, and Charlie Brown must suffer. That is the rule. The gang end up lost again, but end up in Ypres, a battlefield from the First World War. Linus gets everyone to stop and get out at the field, where they take some time to look around. In order to allow this video to avoid a copyright strike, I put a little something together to reflect this final scene. Please have a watch.
What have we learned, Charlie Brown?
We cut back to Charlie Brown and Sally as they reflect on everything, including Linus's question, ending the special. For its time, this was a very mature and even-handed way to explain to kids the meaning of the World Wars, as well as Remembrance Day and Memorial Day. Though I think there is one small missed opportunity. Before I go, I will provide you a link to Sabaton History's video on the Stigler-Brown incident, a famous incident from World War II, in the description. You will see what I mean when I say it's unusual that it wasn't mentioned. Anyway, that wraps up another Charlie Brown special. Happy Memorial Day, everyone. I gotta get back to work. Game on.